Welcome to War Bios, the podcast that delves into the lives of history's most fascinating military figures. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're going to explore the life of one of the American Civil War's most complex and intriguing characters, Nathan Bedford Forrest. A man whose name has become synonymous with both brilliant military tactics and profound controversy. Forrest's story is a rich tapestry of contradictions, woven from threads of poverty, violence, and unyielding determination. Born on July 13, 1821, in a small rural cabin in Bedford County, Tennessee, Nathan Bedford Forrest entered the world with a fate that seemed all but certain to be marked by hardship. The cabin, nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains, was a humble abode, its wooden slats weathered to a soft gray from years of exposure to the elements. The surrounding landscape was unforgiving, with dense forests and rolling hills that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a land of rugged beauty, where the air was sweet with the scent of blooming wildflowers and the sound of birdsong filled the air. Forrest's father, William Forrest, was a farmer of modest means, struggling to eke out a living from the unforgiving soil of the Tennessee frontier. The family's circumstances were precarious, with Nathan being the fourth of 12 children, and his early life was characterized by a constant struggle for survival. The cabin was often filled with the smell of smoke and sweat, as William worked tirelessly to provide for his family, while his wife, Miriam, tended to their children and managed the household chores. The historical context of Forrest's childhood was one of tumultuous change. The United States was expanding rapidly, with the Indian Removal Act of 1830 forcibly relocating tens of thousands of Native Americans from their ancestral lands to make way for white settlers. This period of upheaval would have a profound impact on young Nathan, shaping his worldview and informing his future actions. He grew up witnessing the brutal treatment of Native Americans, watching as they were forcibly removed from their lands and relocated to reservations. These experiences would later influence his views on slavery and states' rights, setting him on a collision course with the very fabric of American society. Growing up in this environment, Forrest received little formal education, instead learning the skills necessary for survival on the frontier, hunting, tracking, and fighting. His father, William, was a hard man who believed in the importance of self-reliance and physical toughness. He instilled in Nathan a strong work ethic and a deep-seated respect for violence as a means to an end. This upbringing would later influence Forrest's approach to warfare, where he would come to be known for his unconventional tactics and unwavering ferocity. As a young boy, Forrest was fascinated by the stories of his father's experiences in the War of 1812. William would regale him with tales of battle, of bloodshed and bravery, and Nathan's imagination would run wild with visions of himself as a great warrior. These stories sparked a fire within him, a flame that burned brightly throughout his life, driving him to seek out adventure and glory on the battlefield. The Forrest family's poverty and the harsh realities of frontier life also had a profound impact on Nathan's psychological development. He grew up with a deep-seated resentment towards those he perceived as having wronged him or his family, and this sense of injustice would simmer just below the surface throughout his life. Despite these challenges, however, Forrest's natural intelligence, charisma, and unyielding determination set him apart from his peers, and he quickly established himself as a leader among his siblings and community. As Nathan entered his teenage years, the family's fortunes began to shift. His father, William, died in 1837, leaving Nathan as the de facto head of the household. This newfound responsibility, coupled with his own ambitions, drove Forrest to seek out opportunities beyond the confines of his rural upbringing. He began to work as a trader and entrepreneur, leveraging his natural business acumen to build a small but successful commercial empire. By the time he reached his early 20s, Nathan Bedford Forrest had established himself as a force to be reckoned with in the region. His reputation as a fierce and cunning fighter, combined with his burgeoning business success, earned him a degree of respect and admiration from his peers. And yet, despite these accomplishments, Forrest's future remained uncertain, shaped by the tumultuous events unfolding around him. The Mexican-American War was looming on the horizon, and the simmering tensions between the North and South would soon boil over into conflict, drawing Nathan Bedford Forrest into a maelstrom of violence and controversy that would define his life forever. He was a man driven by contradictions, a fierce warrior with a deep sense of loyalty and duty, yet also a cunning businessman with a penchant for ruthlessness. His experiences on the frontier had shaped him into a formidable leader, but they had also instilled in him a sense of vulnerability, a feeling that he was always one step away from disaster. As the drums of war beat louder on the horizon, Nathan Bedford Forrest's ambitions turned towards the conflict, sensing an opportunity to prove himself on a grander stage. The year was 1846, and the Mexican-American War was unfolding like a canvas of conquest, beckoning young men with a thirst for adventure and a hunger for glory. Forrest, with his rugged individualism and unyielding spirit, enlisted in the Tennessee Mounted Volunteers, where his natural leadership abilities and combat skills quickly earned him recognition. His unit was attached to the regiment of General John A. Quitman, a seasoned commander who would become a mentor to Forrest, teaching him the intricacies of large-scale military operations. The battlefields of Mexico would be Forrest's crucible, where he would temper his mettle and forge his reputation as a fearless and cunning fighter. The Battle of Buena Vista, with its chaotic landscape of cannons blazing and men screaming, was a defining moment in Forrest's early career. The general's words, praising Forrest's gallantry and good conduct, would be etched in his memory like a badge of honor, fueling his ambition to become one of the greatest commanders of his time. Following the war, Forrest returned to Tennessee, his experiences on the battlefields of Mexico still fresh in his mind. He continued to expand his business interests, becoming one of the most successful slave traders in the region. His entrepreneurial spirit, unbroken by the hardships of war, drove him to build a lucrative trade network that spanned the South. However, this period also saw Forrest's involvement in the slave trade deepen, a fact that would later become a point of controversy in his legacy. The moral ambiguities of slavery, which had been simmering beneath the surface of American society for decades, would eventually boil over into the cauldron of civil war. As the years leading up to the American Civil War ticked by, Forrest's politics became increasingly aligned with those of the Southern secessionists. He was a strong advocate for states' rights and the institution of slavery, believing that the federal government was overstepping its authority by attempting to limit the expansion of slavery into new territories. The firebrand rhetoric of secessionist leaders, coupled with the economic interests of the planter class, had created a perfect storm of discontent in the South. Forrest, with his charisma and influence, found himself at the forefront of the secessionist movement in Tennessee, using his platform to rally support for the Confederate cause. When the Civil War finally broke out in 1861, Forrest was quick to enlist, forming the cavalry unit known as the Tennessee Mounted Rifles. His military career during the war would be marked by numerous successes, including the Battle of Fort Donelson, where he led a daring escape from the besieged fort, and the Battle of Shiloh, where his cavalry played a key role in the Confederate Army's retreat. Forrest's tactical genius, honed on the battlefields of Mexico and refined during the Civil War, earned him widespread recognition as one of the Confederacy's most effective cavalry commanders. One of the most significant events of Forrest's career during this period was his leadership of the raid on Johnsonville, Tennessee in November 1864. Forrest's forces launched a surprise attack on the Union Supply Depot, destroying millions of dollars worth of supplies and equipment. This bold maneuver, which showcased Forrest's mastery of mobile warfare, would be remembered as one of the most daring raids of the Civil War. The destruction of Johnsonville, with its warehouses burning and its docks smoldering, was a testament to Forrest's ability to adapt and innovate on the battlefield. However, Forrest's actions during the war, particularly his involvement in the Fort Pillow massacre, would also spark intense controversy and criticism. The events at Fort Pillow, where Forrest's troops killed hundreds of Union soldiers, including many African-American troops, would become a dark stain on his legacy, with many accusing him of perpetrating a massacre. The cries of the wounded, the scent of gunpowder, and the stench of death would haunt the memories of those who witnessed the carnage at Fort Pillow. Forrest's role in the massacre, which he would later deny or downplay, would become a contentious issue, with some defending his actions as a necessary evil of war and others condemning them as a horrific atrocity. Despite these controversies, Forrest remained unapologetic about his actions, believing that he had fought for a just cause and done what was necessary to protect his home and family. As the Confederacy collapsed and the war drew to a close, Forrest would face a new set of challenges, including the Reconstruction era and the rise of white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan, with which he would become increasingly associated. The complexities of Forrest's character, forged in the fires of war and controversy, would continue to shape his legacy for generations to come. His name, once synonymous with bravery and cunning, would become a lightning rod for debate and division, a reminder that even the most celebrated heroes can be flawed and multifaceted. As the Reconstruction era dawned on the South, Forrest's legend continued to grow, with many regarding him as a hero of the Confederate cause. However, his involvement with the Ku Klux Klan, a group dedicated to intimidating and terrorizing newly freed slaves and their supporters, would further complicate his legacy. The hooded figures of the Klan, with their burning crosses and lynching ropes, would become a symbol of white supremacist terror, and Forrest's association with them would be seen by many as a betrayal of the principles of freedom and equality that America was supposed to represent. As the Reconstruction era drew to a close, like the fading light of a dying ember, Forrest's life began to slow its frenetic pace, but his legacy continued to grow, much like a mighty oak tree whose roots dig deep into the earth. He became increasingly involved in business ventures, including the railroad industry, which was rapidly transforming the American landscape, and worked tirelessly to promote the economic development of the South, a region still reeling from the devastating effects of war. Despite his controversial past, Forrest remained a respected figure in Tennessee, and his name was often invoked as a symbol of Southern pride and resilience, evoking memories of a bygone era when honor and loyalty were paramount. In his later years, Forrest's health began to decline, like a once proud fortress slowly succumbing to the ravages of time, and he suffered from a series of illnesses, including diabetes and heart disease, which weakened his body but not his indomitable spirit. He died on October 29, 1877, at the age of 56, surrounded by his family in Memphis, Tennessee, a city that had been his home and his haven for many years. His funeral was attended by thousands of mourners who came to pay their respects to the man they knew as a hero of the Confederacy, a testament to the enduring power of his legacy. His involvement with the Ku Klux Klan, an organization notorious for its racist ideology and violent tactics, remains a dark stain on his reputation, a painful reminder of the ongoing struggle for racial justice and equality in America. The Fort Pillow Massacre, a horrific event that saw the slaughter of hundreds of African-American soldiers, is another grim chapter in Forrest's legacy, one that underscores the brutal consequences of war and the enduring legacy of racism. And yet, despite these controversies, Forrest's legacy is also marked by moments of remarkable courage and leadership. His military campaigns, though often brutal and bloody, showcased his strategic genius and his unwavering commitment to his cause. The Battle of Shiloh, where he led a daring charge against overwhelming Union forces, is just one example of his bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. As historian Court Carney once observed, Forrest's life was a testament to the paradox of American history, which has always been marked by both noble ideals and brutal contradictions. Forrest's own words, spoken in a speech to the Independent Order of Pallbearers, a group of African-American Southerners, in 1875, reflect this paradox. We were born on the same soil, breathe the same air, and live in the same land. Why, then, can we not live together in peace and harmony? These words, spoken by a man who had once been a slave trader and a Confederate general, are a powerful testament to the complexity of his character and the enduring power of his legacy. Today, Forrest's legacy continues to be debated and contested, with some hailing him as a hero and others condemning him as a villain. His statue stands tall in Memphis, Tennessee, but it is also a reminder of the ongoing struggle for racial justice and equality in America. Forrest's place in history is secure, but it is also nuanced and multifaceted. He was a man of his time, shaped by the circumstances of his birth and upbringing, and yet he was also a man who transcended his time, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire and provoke us today. In conclusion, Forrest's story is a complex and multifaceted one, full of contradictions and paradoxes. It is a reminder that history is never simply black and white, but rather a nuanced and multifaceted tapestry woven from threads of different colors and textures. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.